All right, so we are ready to color our crewmates, and we're going to talk in colored pencils, and we're going to kind of reuse some skills that we've already done before and kind of put them in a new way. And I do have my eraser out just in case, and I have a Sharpie out as well because we will finish them out with that bold black outline. Okay, so I did bring back my printout of a crewmate from the interwebs because I want us to look at the different color schemes. So when it printed out a little funky, but it is a very digital graphic image, those crewmates, and we're going to make them a little bit more smoother, add a little bit more 3D quality to them with our shading. So we're going to apply the knowledge that our darkest color will be down here. We'll add a medium value, and then we'll also talk about the kind of that glass shield around the face, okay? So I am going to grab my blues as my example first. And I'm grabbing any blue colored pencil I have. So looks like I've got about 3 right now to choose from. Because that's a black. Let's see, what's this? This is a darkest blue, and maybe I'll pull that out. So I've got 4 blues to maybe use. The rest of these are 2 teal, the ones that are still in my box, okay? So I'm going to start kind of with that kind of solid blue color. And I'm going to do this back guy. Now notice that my guys don't have any disguises or anything like that, so it really is going to depend on what you chose to do for your project, okay? And we could easily use our sketchbook and kind of test things out in here first, okay? So you can take your sketches, which is always a great idea, and test stuff out before you go. So if we want to draw a really quick crewmate, okay, there's his glass, and there's our backpack. We'll kind of focus on in here first before we do anything on that final project, okay? So we kind of want to look at that printout and decide, like, where does the color change? So I'm going to kind of just highlight in this zone over here, and this is kind of where the color changes. So I would want to color nice and solid pretty much up to that point to where the color shifts. Notice that my strokes are overlapping. They're going in the same direction. I'm only slightly curving when I get towards the top over here. So again, constantly overlapping. That's what gives you that nice, rich, filled in look to colored pencils. We don't want it to look like one layer. We want to make sure that our finished product looks like it was, you know, spent a lot of time on and overlapped and developed as we go. Okay, so then over here, my blue color continues. Again, I'm overlapping, sometimes using a circular motion to make sure I'm really overlapping well. And then working my way up the other side. Sometimes you gotta take a little break because your hand gets tired. And I am moving pretty quickly so that you guys can get to work. So please don't feel like you have to move this fast. All right, so then I'm gonna go ahead and get ready for my next color. And I grabbed, you know, my next level of blue, and I'm basically gonna overlap what's already there before I start with my next layer. Now this is kind of a little tealy, more tealy than I wanted it to be, so maybe I should have tested my colors, but that's why we practice first. So I could have tested that and said, yeah, that's probably a better blue in between, but I'm kind of married to this one since I already started with it. So again, I'm overlapping the color that's already there as I kind of work my layering into my character. Now I typically like to rotate my sketchbook or my paper so that I'm kind of constantly coloring in the same pathways, because it's way more comfortable than trying to turn your arm back and forth. Okay, so as you can see, it still looks a little sketchy. We've got more work to do. So To develop it further, I would go back and overlay that initial blue. And kind of go back and forth until that color gets richer, like you're seeing over on this end, and not like this down here. We don't want it to look airy. We don't want it to look like we used crayon at all. So we want to make sure that we go back and forth, and it might mean that you need to stop and sharpen some pencils every once in a while. It looks like I'm getting close to needing to do that as we kind of develop that way. So blending a little bit more in this lower half, and then we're going to quickly talk about the upper half. I won't finish the whole thing right now. All right, so then let's talk about our shield a little bit. So I want you to think in like grays, blacks, and white values. Looks like I only have a silver, but that will work just fine. Okay, so you do want to think about where that bright white highlight should be, right? And kind of think about it in terms of, okay, it should probably be, take up about this much space, and you can go ahead and color it in so you don't accidentally do anything else with it. And then the next layer should be that gray value, and I'm going to keep it pretty light, and I'm using sort of a circular pattern to color right now because it's smaller. And then I'm going to kind of blend with the white. It's not blending as much as I'd like it to, but that's okay. All right, so then to kind of make sure I keep in check with the original drawing, I'm going to make this last part pressing a little bit harder, and I'm even going to overlay a little bit of black with it to make it more of a dark gray, because I don't happen to have a dark gray colored pencil at home. I actually really dislike this silver one a lot. I really wish I had a dark gray. And maybe even just using a regular pencil would have worked better too. So you can experiment just with like your number 2 pencil for this section. And then adding that black lightly over the top to make it appear that dark gray value. Overlapping as we go, still wanting to have smooth shading along the way. Okay. All right, so I'd want to go ahead and finish up coloring my CREWMATE, and then I want to take my Sharpie and just really finish it off and give it that illustrated look, because we wanted to add some shading detail, but we definitely still want it to look more illustrated, and usually we get that look by that black outline. Okay, so obviously I know I need to finish shading, but you get the drift. Okay, so then I would carefully outline the glass, and then outline the CREWMATE itself. And I missed a little bit, but that's okay, because I'm going to do a double layer so that it's nice and thick anyways. And then I've got to have that little overlap here to show the front versus back leg. And I would want to go around the glass as well. And the Sharpie can help you kind of reshape things too if you didn't like the shape that you drew. You definitely can make some corrections as you are outlining, which is really nice. And realize that I am still working in my sketchbook, so I'm taking a decent amount of time to really make sure I'm doing this right before I apply this to any sort of final project. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then I obviously need to trace the backpack. All right, so the only thing I have left to do is my backpack and kind of finish up the area over here for my crewmate and really kind of finish off that practice drawing. So that's exactly how I want it to look when everything is done. So again, overlapping to blend, layering up, not pressing super hard at first at all, letting those layers become that shading. That's super important. Okay. And then bringing those other colors in and kind of crossing them over, that's what really kind of develops the shading and makes things look more blended and dynamic. Okay, so as we go into your final and you're kind of figuring out what do you want to do, so obviously you need to draw your disguises first and take care of whatever you're going to do, and then use these concepts here to do the body, but that, make sure you think about, okay, if I have a hat or if I have other things on my body, I need to shade those as well. So if you're going to add something like a pair of pants, you would want to make sure that the outline of the pair of pants is a little bit darker than the interior to have that rounded look. Same thing with Mickey up here, maybe, you know, darken up those edges of the red and really make sure that, you know, that yellow pops in here. And that the black, you know, decide if it's better for the ears to just be Sharpie and to really be solid up here. That's really up to you. So it depends on your theme. It depends on what you're doing. So really kind of take the time to practice in your sketchbook and make a plan before you add that color to your final project. I cannot wait to see the finished products, guys. These are going to be fabulous. And I know you're going to come up with some really creative stuff to share with each other. Have a good one.